Today I'm going to be asking you some questions, and you may not have the answer right now, but I'm asking you to reflect on the questions later in order to find your way to some answers. First question: how many people here remember your own birth into this world? I don't see any hands. How many people here remember your own birth into this world? Over the years, you hear about it from other people. You hear who was present, who delivered you, where you were born. Some of you were born at home. Some of you were born in a hospital. Some of you may have even been born in a taxi. Elaine and I have shared the story of our children's births many times, and we've laughed about it and certain things about what happened. And it's almost as though they were there in their own memories because we've talked about it over the time period as they've grown up. They've come into this world, entranced it, this wonderful and exciting mystery of what life holds for each and every one of us, and the vast universe that we're born into. We come into this world with an open slate. We don't know what will happen. We don't know who we are. We're just beginning. We know nothing and begin to learn as soon as we cry for the first time when we're born. The doctor spanks us. We cry, like crying in the wilderness. Another question. What is your first memory that remains a part of you? That's not an easy one to answer for me. I have to admit, a very sketchy memory of the growing up years. But I do have a very distinct memory of something that happened to me when I was almost 2 years old. I can visualize my dad and my mother and my 3 sisters all huddled around an RCA radio. That was the only form of communication back then. And they were listening intently to the news that was being broadcast. And I had that distinct feeling that something was happening that was going to affect me. I didn't know how. The doorbell rang, and I remember running to the front door and opening it, and our neighbor came in to see my father. It was Pearl Harbor, the first news. And the tension of that day is in my first conscious memory. What about your memory? Some of those can be very painful. Some of those we don't want to even think about or reflect. Others warm our hearts to the point where we wish we could relive it. Reflection is a part of living as we look back and remember who we were at certain stages of our lives. The Gospel of John today is about an older person by the name of Nicodemus. Nicodemus was a rabbi, and he was questioning Jesus, wanting to know what it meant to be born again. Born in a new way. It is one of those stories that expresses the way people recognize in Jesus a reflection of who he is as a child of God, as a part of the living God, and being a part of God, God's presence, and wanting to know how to join in that presence. Nicodemus, how old was he? We don't know. We do know that he was up in years. And Jesus challenges him because he's a teacher. He should know what Jesus is talking about. What is born of the flesh is flesh. And what is born of the Spirit is spirit. Back to your own birth. You cannot remember being born of the flesh. But an awareness of the Spirit comes upon us, and we can remember times when we have felt a closeness within creation in such a way that we know something of that mystery, whether we speak of it as the Spirit, the person of Jesus, God the Father. Maybe the Spirit moved you in a worship service, or hearing a prayer, or listening to a story of a friend, or listening to a sermon, or being with a loved one as they are dying. Many moments that over time crystallize our understanding of the Spirit working within us, through us, with others, sharing in ways that add to our own life and to others. And I love that portion of the gospel today in John that says, the wind blows where it chooses, and you can hear the sound of it, but you do not know where it comes from or where it goes. So it is with everyone who is born of the Spirit. I can remember very distinctly as I was rector of St. Stephen's Parish in Baker, Oregon, now Baker City. In Baker, Oregon, when I was there, I had the whole county ministry. And I'd spend some nights on the Snake River, Hell's Canyon area. And the wind would blow. And I would just think to myself, where is it going? Where has it been? Who has been here to hear it before? Native Americans? Animals? Here I was, listening, wondering where the wind was going. Each of us is on a unique journey of life. No two people have the same journey, although we gather together to go on our journeys together. So here we are today. Again, our reflections along the way help us to know where we've been and others have been on the journey. Justice is a word we hear at an early age. I don't remember when I heard that word for the first time, or how it was dealt with in my own life. It may not connect with us until we have dealt with justice issues, or with those we know and love who are experiencing injustices. What a learning. I learned over the years that justice is a part of loving God. Some people choose to ignore the issues of justice, deny that there are problems, or refuse to address the issues even though they confront them or confronted by them. My first experience with injustice was when I was probably 5, 6, 8, 10, I don't know how old I was. But my mother accused me of taking some fudge that she had hidden in a closet. I had 3 older sisters. I think it was a sibling issue. But I was accused and punished. Unfair, unjust. It hurt me to be accused and punished when I was innocent, and I knew I was innocent. So as we grow in our journey, we find that issues of justice to be very much part of loving God and our neighbor. The Spirit again, moving to make us honest and real in our humanity, real people. The Spirit again. We have choices to make, and refusing to choose in itself is a choice. The Spirit moves and we say yes or no to real issues of real human beings. It's never easy, but it's always a part of life. Worship is an important part of that reflection as we grow in our knowledge of each other and God and the Spirit. We join in with people from the past who have given us these beautiful psalms, that one we had just a moment ago, prayers, and scripture, hymns, and the wonderful gift of the Eucharist that reflects the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. I would like to ask another question which you may not be able to answer. What is your first memory of music? Music is the glue that holds us together as a community and as individuals. I was a radio announcer for 3 summers while I was in college, Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas. I was at stations in Cortez, Colorado, with the call letters KVFC, the voice of the 4 corners, where the 4 states of Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Arizona come together in a point of reference. It's gorgeous territory, wonderful. Part of the Navajo Nation. We would have a Navajo priest come on Sundays and speak Navajo for an hour. People in Utah, the Native Americans would listen in. I also served at KIUN, my hometown, during high school and college one summer. And at KFST, Fort Stockton, Texas. There were only 3 of us on the radio there, but we kept it open every day. I often had all day on Sunday to play music, all kinds of music. I've heard more preachers than I want to hear. I met Johnny Horton and Johnny Cash and Hank Thompson when they were first beginning to play their music. I played their music on the radio when they were just beginning. And I had the good fortune to have Roy Orbison at our high school graduation party in 1957. He had just recorded Ooby Dooby and sang it several times for us. He put it on Sun Records. It was his first big hit. He lived only 40 miles from my hometown. Music was and remains a very important part of my life. And can you even imagine what the world would be like if you didn't have music? Don't try to imagine it. You can't. But it's there. It's with us. And we all have our different tastes and our music choices. But how often do you find yourself humming a hymn sung at church? Or your favorite singer suddenly on the radio or there on TV? Music is a part of the Spirit that helps us move into the future. Gives us some sense of meaning and purpose within us. Yes, the Spirit moves us forward in many ways into a future yet to be defined. It's always there before us. We just don't know what's going to be there. Our journeys with God and to each other. We're once again experiencing Lent. And the movement of the Spirit towards the crucifixion and resurrection. It actually took centuries for the development of how Christians were to participate in worship. First 3 centuries, they were all house churches. Churches weren't allowed. Lent began in Jerusalem in the 4th, 5th, and 6th centuries because pilgrims began to visit Jerusalem in the Holy Land and discover the holy sites. And this included Calvary, where Jesus was crucified. And a magnificent church was built there in the year 335. Destroyed a number of times. It used to be a gorgeous place. Now it's a very historical, interesting place to visit and see and be a part of now. But back in those days, a bishop by the name of Jerome would sit at the base of Calvary, where Jesus was crucified, and he would tell the story to pilgrims as they would gather at this place, and he would circle the space and tell the people the story, and look up and see the place where the crucifixion took place. And these pilgrims returned to their homes in Greece, Armenia, Syria, Egypt, and Europe, and other countries where churches were beginning to emerge. By the 5th century, almost all the people in Armenia were Christian, and a lot of it came from the pilgrims. They captured the stories they heard in Jerusalem and adapted them to their worship. And eventually, Lent became important in preparing for Easter. It was the Spirit moving within the lives of people we've never heard of, who gave us what we have today in our Psalms and Scriptures. We have them today because the Spirit moved them at a particular point in time. Reflections on beginnings and endings. A definition of all who have been born into this world and died, and those yet to be born, and those yet to die. Our beginnings and endings of living within a mystery of creation that is ever expanding, ever expanding. And we're such a tiny part of it, at least so we imagine. But in the eyes of God, we are each very, very, very special. And are asked to a continuing yes with capital letters to the Spirit that surrounds us and is within us. We belong to God. And for God's purposes, and for God's purposes alone, have we been created. Thanks be to God.